What's up, bookworms? Welcome to episode 126 of the Cantina Book Club podcast, where readers can find interviews with authors from all genres. I am Megan, self proclaimed content queen, here to bring you insights from the authors themselves. Each week features a Cantina conversation with an author. Usually it's someone new, but sometimes they're returning guests. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss out on an episode, and feel free to browse through existing episodes so that you never miss out on an interview. And today's episode features a chat with Janie Chang. We're talking about her book, The Fourth Princess. That book is available now. Some spoilers may or may not pop up in these episodes, but the conversations are more enjoyable if you've read the book anyway. Today's episode features a chat with Janie Chang. We're talking about her book, The Fourth Princess. That book is available. Today's episode features a chat with Janie Chang, and we're talking about her book, The Fourth Princess. That book is available now. I seriously loved this book. I didn't know what to expect. It's a gothic fiction taking place in old Shanghai, and it's got like historical fiction and paranormal, and it's really good. The suspense is there, the paranormal is there, the character connection is there, the plot twists are there, and this is 5 stars for me. And the conversation with Jenny was just as good. I loved it so much. Some spoilers do pop up in these conversations, but the episode is more enjoyable if you've read the book anyway. If you don't know why I had to hold back a certain name about the plot twists and certain character decisions, so hit pause, add this episode to your playlist, and go pick up a copy of The Fourth Princess. This interview will be ready when you're done. Just a heads up that I often use adult language to express my feeling towards the authors and their work, whether the characters need to get their shit together or I am saying what the fuck to the author for making me feel things. Just please be mindful around listening ears. Without further ado, get ready, grab your favorite drink. Here is Janie Chang. So today we've got Janie Chang. We're talking about her book, The Fourth Princess, that comes out on February 10th. Janie, thanks so much for joining me today. I love this book. I'm finding that I really dig the gothic fiction vibe, and I love also historical fiction as well. And this was so cool. Expert misdirection, because I had you fooled me as we get to the mystery bit, and I just really love kind of everything that you did with this book. I'm excited to dig a little bit deeper today.
Thanks, Megan, for inviting me to your show. And I'm thrilled that you enjoy Gothic because Gothic is one of the genres that I really enjoy too. And I've always been writing historical fiction, but this time I thought, do something a little bit different.
Yeah, and you did it very well. I could see that after a while, you're kind of like, I want to play around with this, and I think I could do it this way. And I you did it really well. I feel like a lot of even with storytelling, there's plots, like a lot of that you could almost like you can apply it to historical fiction, or you can apply
Yeah.
like it to like a paranormal. Like I love that you played around with that because that it was so fun. It was so fun. I got sucked in. I was like, what is going on? And I was so sure I was so sure about certain
Oh,
people,
thank you.
and then you did some expert misdirection and tension and all that, and just like the characters, I loved getting to know them. It was so fun. But other than that, before we get into all of that, can you share a summary of the book that like people could follow along with the conversation?
So it's Gothic, which means there's going to be like a mysterious house. There's going to be like an innocent young woman or two who go to live in the house and find that there's some deep, dark secret that puts them in danger. The novel is set in 1911 Shanghai, so old Shanghai before the First World War. And there are two female characters. One is Li San, who's an orphan, and she hopes to find a job so that she can support herself. And the other one is Caroline, who's a wealthy American. She's newlywed, as she and her husband have just moved to Shanghai. And they've moved into this dilapidated, magnificent mansion, and Caroline hires Lisanne to be her social secretary. And like almost from the moment that Lisanne enters Lennox Manor, which is in the outskirts of Shanghai, she starts seeing and hearing strange things. And eventually she starts wondering if she's going mad because no one else seems to be noticing any of this stuff. And as for Caroline, someone from her past shows up and threatens to expose her secret. And so both these women have something to lose and they have secrets in their past. And I can't tell you anymore because then it's going to be a spoiler. Like we just go into spoiler
I know.
territory after
It's
this.
honestly, yeah, because you pull us along when we feel like, oh, like there were certain points where I was like, oh, it's this and oh, it's that. But then I was rough, was wrong. And it was just like, but I still didn't, we'll get into it, but the characters who ended up, that character in particular who ended up being having those motives and being behind things, I still did not, I still felt for that person. I felt still for that character. I like you wrote them in such a way that I was still rooting for them. I was like
That's
like somehow even though this person, this character did like horrible things, I still was like, oh, but are good. I was
that's good. I'm glad you made me
you
feel that way.
you make us feel for the characters and a little the reader, like you connect with the reader that way because we're at war with ourselves. Like, wait a second, what does that mean about me if like I still have sympathy for this character? Like, so good job, well done.
Mhm.
So I want to get into your background and you have a few published works under your belt.
Mhm.
How did The Fourth Princess compare, like your experience writing it, publishing it, your approach? How did that differ from your previous works?
My first three novels were actually historical mixed with some elements of fantasy. As you've already noticed earlier in our chat, historical can lend itself to all sorts of genres. You've got historical romancy, historical fantasy kind of thing. And then my fourth book was set, it was straight historical. There was no fantasy in it. It was a World War I story. And then the next one I wrote was also straight historical. It was The Phoenix Crown that I co authored with Kate Quinn. So we both wrote straight historical. But I'd been plotting in my head this Gothic tale. And I really like the idea that in Gothic is it or isn't it a ghost? Is it or isn't it a real haunting? Is there or isn't there a terrible secret that's sort of keeping people teetering on the edge of wondering? And I've always really enjoyed Gothic. I'm sure you've read like Rebecca and Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights and books like that, and it shaped your reading preferences as you got older. So I just really wanted to give it a shot. And more than that, it was a challenge too, because you know how most Gothic novels happen in Europe, in a European setting or the UK somewhere, there's a crumbling castle. And there aren't that many which are set in a different place in Asia, in South America, in whatever. And what I wanted was the challenge of transplanting all those tropes from Gothic to Shanghai and being true to history, pulling in situations that really could only happen in that time and in that place. So bringing a fresh take to it while still staying within the parameters of the Gothic genre. So that was the challenge for me.
I loved the fact that it was like China, like early 1900s, right? I think that's the aspect of historical fiction that I like, where, and also just reading from different areas of the world that I'm not very informed about, educated about. I appreciate reading books that make me feel smarter when I'm finished, approach it in the mindset, in the zone that you are in early 1900s China, because that's like the businesses that you're approaching and the story that are part, their huge plot point in the business endeavors. Because, and we'll want you to get into it, just like the research that went into it, because there were so many things that were so crucial, because it was such a big, that was a kind of a big deal in the Shanghai area around that time, and how the Americans were referred to as the foreigners. And that to me, that was fascinating, because like just in America, we say like, oh, the foreign people are not from here, but the Americans were referred to as foreigners. And then the lifestyle and the superstition, right? Like it all like ties into how the characters act and how they like the cultural norms or the taboo and things like that. And so and also like Carolyn's motives too, why she sought out Lisan, because of her ability like to read and write, and also but also understand both languages and with discretion. And she knew how to act, and she all that. So I want to ask you about like your experience with research and anything like surprising or fascinating that you learned.
In terms of research, I have like piles of books on Shanghai before the war. And what I what really brought the story together was I had to find the right house, because in my head, I have to be able to visualize the streets of Shanghai and what people are doing and what it was like driving your carriage down the main road. But so much of the story happens inside that house.
Yeah.
So it turned out that I found a photograph of a mansion called Den Art, and it was on the outskirts of Shanghai. It was built in 1898 by a very rich British lawyer, and it was this huge estate. He had like an artificial lake, he had tennis courts, he had a rose garden, he had a stable for his polo ponies and housing for his servants. And when I saw that house, I thought, okay, this could be turned into the manor in the novel. And as I dug deeper into it, it turns out that this house was not unusual because Shanghai was a cash cow. If you could go to Shanghai and start a
Like
business
at the right time.
at the right
Like,
time,
yep.
you were going to make tons of money. And there was already a lot of money there from the days of selling opium.
Mm.
Yeah, both foreigners and Chinese. And people were building these enormous homes that looked like they belonged somewhere in Europe. Both Chinese and foreigners were building these enormous homes as status symbols. So I just looked through. There were so many pictures. There were so many pictures. And some of these homes still exist. In fact, the one that The Fourth Princess is based on, it still exists. Although all around it, housing developments have sprung up. So that
Mm.
huge estate is no longer
It's
one huge estate.
Oh, got it. It's kind of
Yeah.
like there's things peppered around it. Yeah.
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 Yeah. But that was just so incredible. And then that was the other aspect that research brought out was Shanghai was this mishmash of Chinese and foreign. So within Shanghai, what they call the international settlements, those areas were actually following the laws of Britain, of Great Britain, and of France and of the US. So within that territory, the police force were run by the British, the American,
Mm.
and the French, not the Chinese. To me, this blend meant I had to have two heroines, one American, one Chinese, to represent that mix of cultures and commerce and society. And the it also became pretty clear that this was a good time to put a story simply because 1911 was the year before the last emperor of China abdicated
Which,
and China became a republic.
Like, God,
So
I
the
didn't even touch
months,
on the royalty, the whole regime change. Like, that
yeah.
was, like, I just,
So
yeah.
yeah. So what that meant was in the months and the years before the last emperor abdicated, it was anybody's game. You had like the royalists who were not willing to give up their autocratic power. You had the nationalists who wanted to make China a modern republic. You had very powerful warlords who each controlled territories throughout China. And some of them had armies that were bigger and better equipped than the imperial army of China. And you had foreign interests who were funding and trying to influence politics because they didn't want to lose whatever business deals
Yeah.
they had going. So it was a really interesting time, which meant that you could bring in all that political intrigue and a fair amount of greed. So a lot of the motivations behind the characters in the book were political ideals and also money, greed. Money made the world go around in Shanghai.
Yeah. And so that brings up because a lot of it was isolated is not the word. It's a lot of the money, the elite status was few. So it's like if there was any big project, any big development,
Mm-hmm.
there was maybe one of a handful of people who were involved, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so that's why, like, when I notice certain connections where it's like, oh, who's actually owns the mansion? It happens to be this person. Like, honestly, it like obviously I know that was like for storytelling, but honestly, it seemed like no, that would totally make sense because that particular family had the money, and at that time they were
Mhm.
making the big moves and they had hands in like a lot of things, and so it would totally make sense that like realty and I don't know, lack of better words, being or owning press
Mm.
definitely one of those things. And that's what
Yeah.
made it like that's what made it even juicier. Like that's what made it even more. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and just so you know, Megan, that the Liu family of Shanghai, they were a real family.
Oh my
Like there
gosh.
was a real
That's so
family in
cool.
Shanghai, and they were very modern. They sent their kids, they sent their sons to school in places like Harvard and Yale, and they were really wealthy. They were like into banking, railroads, and shipping and everything. The real Liu family, they unfortunately did not leave China when the communists took over. So that was the end of their wealth, like around
Dang.
1950s.
That's
But before
heartbreaking.
that, they were very influential. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's so much like depth in the history of China, like around that time. And even now, it's like I'm not really familiar with like international drama or like, for lack of better words, I know just from what I've collected from other sources or just like reading, even like reading books, there would be a huge conflict over like international waters and like China would be at the center of it. Or at least that's what I gathered. But still, I get that's why I don't know. I still think it's like fascinating how I loved I just loved all the tidbits and things that you put in this book. And so does that like I don't know if your other books or like your background, your ancestral background, is that just like you feel connected to that region? Is that kind of like why you were like, I'm just gonna get into it? Like,
Strangely enough, my first book, my debut that I wrote called Three Souls, it was actually because I always knew if I ever got my ass in gear and wrote a book, it would be based on the life of my grandmother, my dad's mom, because she had such a tragic life. Like
mm,
Lisa, and she was well educated, but because she came from a rich family, she was never allowed to have a job. And
mm,
so it was
post
sad.
woman too,
And she
right?
was a woman.
Unfortunately.
It was like, why do you need any more education? You're just going to be a wife and a mother and so on. And when I wrote that book, I had no idea it was historical fiction. I was just writing a book. Like I was so ignorant of the industry back then. And then with my second book, I figured out and people started telling me, oh, you're writing historical fiction. Like,
No.
oh, really? Really?
Like, okay, now you can
Yeah.
understand what like categories you fit into. Yeah.
So that's a category, but I think I'm just drawn to it because when I was little, my father would tell me a lot of stories about what his childhood was like, what our ancestors we had stories about our ancestors, the little town where he grew up, and what he did during the war when he was a university student. And it just was so vivid to me that sometimes this little town that I'd never been to at that point was more real to me than other places. So I think I
Maybe
was
that's where
just,
you get your storytelling from.
that's where, but I wanted it, I just felt comfortable telling stories that were set in the childhood and young adulthood of my parents. And plus, they do say that fiction needs conflict to be interesting. You go through the first 50 years of the 20th century, and there is so much conflict in Chinese history. Like, pick any year, and there is
Yeah.
some shit going on.
Say less, right? Like, okay, here, what's your flavor? Like, what's
Yeah.
your vibe?
You want famines, you want floods, catastrophes, bubonic plague, or warlords attacking each other. Just go ahead. Pick a
Oh
year,
gosh.
any year.
Yeah, there's plenty of material. Like
Yeah, plenty of it. Yeah.
absolutely. No, I love that. Like, and for the sake of that, you were able to connect and discover, right? We're able to explore that sense of comfort. And I bet it was like maybe a little therapeutic putting it out into a story, applying it to fiction.
It's definitely made me feel closer to Chinese history and my own cultural background because everybody thinks, oh, because she is Chinese, obviously she was born knowing all this history. No, not really, because I was educated at international schools and in Canadian schools, and they did not teach Asian history.
Right.
So most of this I learned while researching for my books. I had a general idea of what was going on, but it's like I'm researching stuff. I'm thinking, oh my God, Daddy was right. This really did happen.
You're fact checking without realizing it. You're just like,
Something, it's like the validation or just to know that what my dad went through, other
yeah,
people went through as well. But I just want to say that I'm so thrilled that you found the historical part of it interesting because obviously I'm a history nerd, okay? Because, and also because the hardest part, I think, of writing historical fiction is to be able to dribble in all that history without turning off the reader.
yeah.
Because we love our history. We love our research. It is so hard not just giving you with this whole brain dump of what
Oh,
was
yeah.
happening. But then when you do that, you lose the reader because the story is what matters, right?
I have spoken to authors who they just fell down a rabbit hole of 4 hours for like 3 sentences. Their book, like I think I read, oh my God, I feel so bad that I feel bad what the book was called, but I interviewed her. It was a fantastic book, but the research that she did, because it did a lot of like a lot of it was it was like historical fiction, but fantasy because it was like a time traveling family and they were
Mm-hmm.
African Americans. They didn't, and the thing was, they didn't know what point in time they would fall back to. So it's like, oh, I can have papers proving that I'm not a slave, but the date is 2 days off. It's a fascinating book. But when I talked to her, like, oh, about the research, and she would say, like, I fell into a rabbit hole researching about makeup in
Mm-hmm.
like 1950s or something like that. And she's like, and I was there before I realized it, 3 hours have gone by and I used it for 2 sentences.
That is so true. I have another author friend who says it's never wasted. She said, think of research and all the work you do. She says, it's like making broth. She says, the research is like you put in the meat and the bones and the vegetables and just the whole thing simmer. And then when you strain it out, you've got the broth, which is your knowledge.
Oh,
And
wow.
it may not show up in every sentence, but it informs the way you write.
That's beautiful.
And that's absolutely correct because only after doing all that research would I be able to write along and say, and then she was going to do this. And then I'm thinking, but wait, that's not right. For a girl of her upbringing, for a girl from a conservative family, this is not what she would do. And
Right.
if I want her to do it, I have to give her a motivation for wanting to go against everything that she was raised to
Yeah.
believe. So it helps with these flags, the red flags that come up when you're writing.
For like, and also for you to really push to the readers that no, like this is a big deal because she's going way against the grain. She forward to this. And
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that's so important to take into account. Oh my God, Chantel Madison, The Fallen Fruit.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
best.
Yeah. So,
It's just like the wheels were turning. It just took me a minute to get there. But no, absolutely. I think that's a part of that I appreciate because I'm like, I'm so open to the fact that I I'm just open to the knowledge and I'm open to
mhm,
like, okay, it's also a credit to you for your ability to like, it's world building. And then also not, like you said, like try not to overload the reader, try not to break up the flow, try not to like make the reader disinterested or disengaged, but like because you're like you had a lot going on. You had the political, you had the history, you had two women's point of view, which brings out its own special perspectives. And then you had a couple ghosts, maybe not ghosts, floating around, and like a tragic backstory. And then you had these connections, and also his actual like with the historical aspect, the monarchy, the dynasty about, and then like poor Lisan, sh- and then oh my god, we didn't even get to Yao. Oh my god, like it reminded
well,
me of like Anesthesia, and it was like the movie, by the way, and I hold that movie close to my heart. But I was like, oh my god, he's like Dimitri or whatever. But I love that because it was just you took that period of time and you took the history and the context, and then you also added the spin that so I don't know how you did it. You weaved in that paranormal storyline, weaved in how Lisan was being called, like she was being drawn to something. She's like, I don't know, something is going on, and I have a feeling that I'm supposed to know, and I'm supposed to follow this lead, and I'm supposed to figure this out. Like there were so many times where I was like, go to the pond. Like, go out
I,
there. It was just like it was just beautiful, and it was I don't know. You have such a talent, and I love
oh.
it was so much fun to read.
But you know what? I'm really glad that you enjoy the historical part of it, but that was actually really hard in a reverse way because I got through about a third of the first draft and I'm reading it and I was thinking, this is wrong. It just doesn't feel gothic. Like I'm just not hitting the notes. And then, of course, I realized I'm doing the history nerdy thing. And in Gothic, the danger is not from outside the mansion,
Yeah.
the danger comes from within, right? So I was bringing in too much of the historical situation. And you know what
You were trying
happens?
to
You got to
find
go back.
the right recipe, the right
Mhm.
measurements of
Yeah.
the
So I
ingredients
had,
of the
yes,
broth.
of the broth. Yes. Fewer bones. So I actually ripped out quite a lot and
No.
then went and refocused
Were you
on,
okay? Do you have to like take a moment for that? Because I
yeah,
imagine
more,
that.
yeah, like
Yeah.
3 days worth of moments. And, but then, just reset, recalibrate, and say, it's the house. It's the house. The menace, the secrets, remember the house.
Yes. Oh, I think that was a smart or that was a helpful way, I imagine, for you to like just focus on like whenever you're getting carried away, you're like, no, the house. The house. Like
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. You already piggybacked on this. Challenging and most enjoyable parts to write.
I actually really enjoyed writing the spooky bits because that's where you get to use language, right? You're trying to use language to convey, for example, how the wind comes in down the chimney and it whistles and it cries out like like a person in mourning, or that you can see this figure in red, just very hazy out in the garden. And you get to use such evocative language when you're doing something like that rather than carry plot narrative. So it was just an opportunity to use language, which you don't often get to do. So
Mm,
I really enjoyed that. The difficult part was the stuff you were talking about, how to drop hints along the way without telling the whole story. But when you got to the point where there's a revelation, then you go back and you think, yes, all those hints were there.
They really were. Because it was like, yeah, then I had to rethink everything up until that point. Because yeah, obviously you lead readers along to the thing to point towards a certain character, and then it turns out, and then I was like, yeah, I was like, oh wait, oh no, it's like I take it all back.
It was difficult, but it was fun too, right?
Yeah, you were just there like,
Let me play with your mind.
yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. So also maybe switching topics a little bit. There's some like sensitive themes going on, not just like with the superstition, the paranormal, but like the nature of the deaths. And because of the superstition that the house staff has, because there is someone who ends their own life. And I know that's super sensitive to a lot of people. It's a super sensitive topic, understandably. How did you like, and there's oppression of inequality of the females so strong. And hopefully we all know how that goes. It's like it spans generation. Oh, just like straight up murder. I just like wanted to explore, like, approach that and maybe how like you had to get in the zone and take yourself out of that space, stuff like that.
Well, I think I did use superstition, like Chinese superstition, to just underscore how seriously all the cultures considered the topic of suicide. Because in Chinese culture, and it says so in the book really clearly, that the ghost of someone who has killed themselves is the worst ghost of all. They are the most desperate. And what they do is they try and, for them to move on in the afterlife, they have to bring in someone to substitute themselves. So they're trying to drive a live person into killing themselves too. So that is the Chinese superstition, right? And it's just terrible. It's a never ending cycle, right? So there's that part of it. I think that when you talk about all these superstitions, it is a way of drawing distinctions also between class, because it's the servants in the house who are really worried. And
Yeah, and
then we have, yeah, and we
it
have Lisan, who went to school, into a school that was run by foreigners. She's literate in English. She has an understanding of Christianity, and she's been told, don't follow those Chinese superstitions.
but then she's also, I love that she defends it. She's like, just so you know, like, because there's a point where like Carolyn's like, I don't, can we take that down? Because the staff is putting up like their own protections
Yeah.
and all that. And the
Yes.
young, what is it, the 10 to 12-year-old, he was like
Yeah.
insistent that Lisa's like protection. And
It's
Carolyn was like wondering that. And then Lisan was like, if it really offends you, but like fine, but I really advise against it. And like that about her, where she was like, yeah, you're my boss, but I'm just gonna give you this insight so that you understand. And it was, and then obviously that knowledge comes, comes out in actions later, but I just like things like that where you're, because it, even though I didn't grow up with that, that totally makes sense. Like I respect that kind of superstition. Like, and it's because it's heartbreaking. Like it is heartbreaking. And then because I've had that kind of a death in my family, and it is like, it is a touchy subject, but right, the way I read it for you, for your, I can't speak for all readers, but how you presented it, it was like I got the impression that you respected the seriousness of it, because it was like, it was heartbreaking how when the readers find out how it ultimately went down. And it's, even though the rumors and like whatever, at the very base of it, what actually happened, it was just, it was heartbreaking. And to like understand that on a deeper level, but then the superstition of the staff who were like that there's a level of, I don't want to say respect, it's like respect for the
they're serious.
situation.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
serious about
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. Where they were like, no, this wristband, like you have to wear this bracelet. Yeah.
And then the other thing that you touched on is Lisan herself has so little agency. You know, she's just worried about, what if my guardian stops supporting me? I need to be able to earn my own way. And then you contrast that with Caroline, who supposedly she's an heiress twice over. She has position in society. She's got a doting husband and everything. So the contrast between the two of them, because it really was like that in 1910 China. Chinese girls did not have a lot of say in what they were going to do. And actually, if you think about it, in 1910, women like Caroline, in many ways also did not have what we would consider a lot of freedom, because she still was constrained by,
Yeah.
yeah, by like the social boundaries of how she had to behave. And I just wanted to make sure that people understood that she was just a little bit different, that possibly her own background and experiences made her a little different,
Right.
because she hired a Chinese woman to be her secretary.
And yeah, and like she got flack for it right away. And then even she was the one watching out for the money. She was watching out for her funds and seeing the writing on the wall. And she was like, oh, hell no. Like, she, like, and to say the least. But
Yes.
that's like, can you imagine those two women? Because Lisan, I admire both of them, but Lisan was like, can you imagine how educated and adjustable and intuitive she would be in this day and age?
Mhm.
Like for those women, those two women with their similar circumstances, one being super educated and maybe not coming from a high family, but still knowing so many things and being familiar with so many things, so many like a handful of cultures. And then the other one being, yeah, an heiress twice over and still having those like street smarts and still watching out for herself. Can you imagine them
Mhm.
like their personalities today? Like they would go so far. I would be like, I will follow you into battle. Like either one of them. Although like Lisan would not, she would be like, no, like this is not my cup of tea. I'm not like, why? And if there was any like war or conflict, she would be like behind the scenes secretively, I could feel like, but then would be like unapologetic, unabashed, like, I know you need to do this and this, and absolutely not. Like, I want to like pick your brain, maybe how they would like. Can you imagine them in today's day and age? Even in like, I don't know, maybe not modern China, but like modern America or even Canada, if you want to if you want to imagine them in Canada.
I think if Caroline decided that there was a cause that was important to her, she'd be out there funding it, fundraising for it, doing strategy, figuring out what was the best way to win. And I think that Lisa would be doing something much more quiet, but still influencing from behind
Yeah.
the scenes. Maybe not directly, but maybe to know someone of influence and try and gently nudge them into doing things her way, what she thought was important. Because I think that's the way it is in a lot of Chinese families in the past. On to the outside world, it was a patriarchy. But within the inner courtyard, it was very much a matriarchy. And my own grandmother, she nudged things along. She would never say, from what my dad told me, she would never say, I want you to send all the kids to university. She would just say things like, it would be a shame if they didn't have this opportunity. Think of the honor it would bring to our family if we could do this. And by the way, my grandmother left me some money, and this is how I'd like to spend it on the kids' tuition, but just like from behind the scenes, prodding and making
Wonder
things
you
happen.
no wonder you were picking at that story of her life because like that's amazing, but it makes so much sense. Isn't that crazy how I imagine how generations and centuries of men running this show, if they had the right women behind them, they would be guided without
Yeah. And I'm not saying that every family in China was
right.
being guided that way,
Yeah, I know
but
I
when,
understand like a
yeah,
lot of women probably were like just going with the status
yeah,
quo and
yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. As you can see, my jaw dropped when you were describing that because it was like if she didn't give that prod and have those two like points of her that would never happen. Imagine how where you would have been now. Like you wouldn't have had family members who went to Harvard and been like, oh, like the world is our oyster. And now we have this amazing education and we have our hands on things at a point where it's easy to have your hands on things. Like it's very hard to do that now, obviously. Like just from my point of view. But I think that's so again, that's what kind of fascinates me about historical fiction and from different regions. Like I love it.
And right. And then so we've got Lisa and Caroline, both of whom are bound within their social roles. But then I hope you found the character of the Princess Masako Kyo interesting because
We didn't even mention her.
She was like a minor character, but she is actually the one person who's based on a real historical figure.
Yeah, I think I read that in like your author's note or like your
So
like your
here's someone who had like no filters. She had like no boundaries. She didn't care what anyone thought. She was a narcissist who basically thought that she was doing the right thing and she could get whatever she wanted and she could be really unscrupulous about it as well. And she's beautiful, she's exciting, and people can't stop looking at her.
She's not afraid to wear pantsuits, like she which was so scandalous. Yeah.
Yeah. She just leverages all of that. Yeah.
I was like, ooh, like you're really an inconvenience, but like as you'd say, slay. Oh, you go, girl. Because I don't know. Even as if there's toxic femininity is a thing, I'm still an advocate for it. I'm for female rage. I'm an advocate for female wrongness. Just like even if it's like problem, I'm like, no, keep going, girl. Because I'm like, that's how much I'm like girl power kind of thing. Where it also makes the story more interesting because she was definitely a wrench. You threw a wrench in the mix. What Masako is that? How?
Masako Kyo. Yes.
Yeah. And it was so funny because I was like, when I reading the back of it, like, you know that she's coming. And then when you read the book, there's like gossip that she's coming, just shows up. Like, it was hilarious. And then there shows up with another person who's like, onto Carola. Yeah.
A threat. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's like, hey, I know it. Like, and she's like, fuck. Like, what? Because I was like right there with her. I was like, oh shit, what are you going to do? But then I was like, what's your secret? Like,
yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Because I was like, wait, he knows a secret and we don't. I was like, what the fuck, Janie?
Yeah.
You're like, sorry, not sorry. Like,
so I'm glad you like the bad girls.
In characters, yes. Like in fiction, yes. But if like I ever came across them in real life, I'd be like, I will root you from a distance. I'll root for you from a distance. Know if I want to be friends with you, because I don't think I would trust you. Because we see how Carolyn and how Lisan, how their stories eventually develop, and all the characters like the uncle and then her husband, and we eventually, and with the staff, and when we eventually learn like what really yes. And I was just like, what? It would like, I don't know, what was that kind of like around the point where your beta readers screamed?
I don't know where she actually screamed, but
probably in the last like quarter of the book.
But for me, the Princess Kyo, Masako Kyo, she was in the story not just because she was throwing a wrench into things. If you think about who she was, again, like a mishmash, like Shanghai itself. The original character was born a Manchu princess, like she really was a member of the aristocracy. And she was sent to Japan to live with one of her father's friends who like became her guardian. And then she was totally screwed. Can you imagine being sent away from your family when you're 6 or 8 years old and someone else is going to raise you and they speak a totally different language and everything? And then so she represents this. She's part Manchu, she's part Japanese. She's also got this weird sense
and she like embraces all of
China. And in real life, this woman had like lovers of different genders, of different nationalities, from all walks of life. She was spying for the Japanese. And actually, at the end, she was executed by the Chinese nationalists for being a
out
traitor.
doing she was doing. Right.
Yeah. She was
I
just, if I were to write a story about her, nobody would believe me because she was like
do
stranger
it.
than fiction. Stranger
Do
than
it.
fiction.
I'm saying, like, even if it's like a novella or a spin-off,
Oh,
we need, I think that's what I was thinking, is that you
yeah.
could totally do her own story, because
Yeah.
she
But
was like, she almost, I don't know, she like even from her, like her, the gossip, the lead up and the end, and then like what, like how she played the game, it was like, because it was also like, her motivations were also wishy-washy, right? Like she made it clear, she's like, no, like, that we need you, or we need this. And
mhm.
then like the
Oh,
characters
it
that
was
be, they were
money.
like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want any, like, I don't want anything. I don't
Yeah.
want that.
I think that in my version, she's talking the game like she's there out of political idealism, but basically she's grifting money.
No, you're
Yeah.
right. Absolutely. But see, I'm like trying to like, maybe like that's my, I'm trying to see like, oh, and I get it. I'm like, I get it. I get it, girl. I get it, girl. Like, it's, I guess it's a way to just open minded and seeing the motives and understanding. Not saying that she's right. Like, trust me,
Mhm,
like, not saying that this certain character I was talking to before is right,
mhm.
but it's like, I get it. It's like, no, you're very problematic and you probably should have gone to therapy for the last 20 years. But I like,
It was.
it's explainable. It's not,
And when I read the biography of, her name was Kawashima Yoshiko. Her Japanese name was Kawashima Yoshiko. And when I read her biography, it was actually really sad. Like she had a very screwed up upbringing, and she was used by her adoptive father. She was used by the Japanese army. She was,
mm,
and
that's it, right above.
yeah,
Add it
yeah.
to your project list. I imagine you already have enough research to get you started.
I've got some other stuff on the plate first.
That okay. I will put this on you. What advice do you have for Lisan? What advice do you have for Carolyn?
For Lisan is make the most of new beginnings and let go of that resentment because she feels resentful that other people have been pulling the strings in her life.
Mm,
And just sometimes that's just the way it had to be. And for Caroline is live your best life. For both of them, live your best life. I know you like the ending. I know you like the ending.
I did, because it's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like we just leave it up. I know, but I know that there are certain readers who would be like, "What the fuck?" Like they won't get that satisfaction. But I was like, the way you ended it, I was like, oh, I was like that. I think I made that sound. I was like, oh, like I was. It was satisfactory to me. I enjoyed it, and it was very like, all right, all right. Hey, Janie Chang, what are you working on that you're allowed to talk about?
What I'm allowed to talk about is the fact that later on, Kate Quinn and I will be working on our second co-authored book.
Oh, that's so
It's
exciting!
called, yeah, it's called The Jade Mirror, and it's an adventure on the high seas. So she's writing for the point of view of the American woman, Marianne Patton Brown, who has to basically deal with a mutiny when her husband, the captain of the ship, falls ill. And I'm writing from the point of view of a woman who lived maybe 40 years before Marianne. She was Madame Zing, and she was a pirate queen. And at the peak of her powers, she had like 700 ships under her command, way more than Blackbeard ever did. And she was successful for 9 years. Blackbeard was only in action for 2. So she was actually the most successful pirate ever in history,
Holy
but
shit!
hardly anybody knows about her outside China.
Oh my god, like, Blackbeard, step down. Oh my god, that's amazing. I bet that's gonna be so much fun to
It's
work
gonna be
on.
fun because at least after the first book, Kate and I have figured out that we can write a book together and still stay friends, which was the
That's so important, right? That, like, you write
well,
a book and you're like, "No, I could do it again."
yeah.
That's
That was actually the first thing that I said to her, which what with our last book when she called me up and said, "I have this idea." And I said, "I think that would be okay. I want to still be speaking to each other after it's over."
Yeah, oh my god, 100%. If and when you're ready, I'd love to chat with both of you. I think that would be so cool to explore, and, like, I would love like, part of me is like, I wanna hear you talk about it. Like, I wanna hear you talk about it together because
Yeah.
I recently did an interview where we're 2 working on a book together, and I think that's so interesting, that's so fascinating to me. I love that. So, Janie Chang, The Fourth Princess, that is available on February 10th. Janie, this was just a fun chat. I loved
Oh.
thank you for answering my questions, for getting a little deep. And again, I will recommend this to people who love historical fiction, who love the gothic vibe, who love the suspense, the mystery vibe. It's got a little bit for everybody, but seriously, 5 stars. 5 stars.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And again, if and when you're ready, if you want to promote your next work, even if it's not your partner book, keep me in mind. I'd love to chat again.
Thank you so much, Megan. Bye for now.
And there you go.
And
That
there you
was
go.
Janie
That
Chang talking
was
about her book, The
Walter
Fourth
B.
Princess. That
Levis
book is
talking
available
about
now.
his book,
Check
The
out the
Meaning
show
of the
notes where you
Murder. That
can
book is
see
available
links where you
now.
can find
Check out the show
Janie
notes to see
online and on
links where you
social
can find
media and
Walter
where to
online
purchase
and
the
on
book.
social media
In the show
and
notes, you'll
where to
also see
purchase
where
the
to find
book.
Cantina
In the
Book
show
Club
notes, you'll
on
also
your
see
favorite
where to
social
find
media
Cantina
book
Book Club
communities,
online on
such
your
as
favorite
Bookstagram,
social
Book
media
Talk,
book
BookTube,
communities,
Threads,
such as
Facebook, and
Bookstagram,
more.
Book Talk,
And I would
BookTube,
love and
Facebook,
appreciate it if
Threads,
you can
and
go head on
more.
over to
And I
those
would
social
love and
media
appreciate it if
channels
you could hit
and
that
find
follow
Cantina Book
button
Club.
and
Hit
so that
follow,
you never miss out on
subscribe
book
so that
reviews
you
and author
never miss a
interviews.
beat on a
If you
book
have any
review
book
or an
loving
author
friends who are
interview.
looking to get
If you
more
have
out
any
of their
book
reading
loving
lists,
friends who
please share
are
Cantina Book
looking to
Club with
get more
them
out of their
so that
reading
they can
lists,
find
please
upcoming
share
releases
Cantina
and
Book Club with
interviews with
them so that
authors.
they never miss a
Another way to
beat.
help
They
this
can find
podcast is to head
upcoming
on over to your
releases and
favorite
interviews
podcast
with
player
authors.
and give Cantina
Another
Book
way to
Club a
help this
rating and
podcast is
review.
to head on
It
over
helps
to your
me to
favorite
reach more
podcast
potential
player and
listeners
give
and
Cantina
fellow
Book
book
Club a
lovers like
rating
you.
and
And that
review.
goes for
It
any
helps me
podcast
to
that you
reach more
listen to.
listeners
It's
and book
one of the
lovers like
easiest way
you.
that you can
And
help out.
really, it's for any
If you need
podcast
book
that you listen
recommendations, you
to,
can
it's
reach out to
seriously
me.
one of the
I'm
best
always
ways that you
looking
can
forward
help.
to
If you need
recommending
book
books based
recommendations,
on
you can
your
reach out to
particular
me. I'm
favorite
always
genre
looking
or your
forward
reading
to
mood. Or you can head
suggestions,
on over to
whatever genre you're looking
cantinabookclub.com
for,
to
whatever
read
mood
more
you're
in-depth
in.
book reviews
And while you're at
of all
it,
types of
please
genre. While
subscribe.
you're at
If
it, you
you're
can subscribe by entering your email on the
and
website so
you
that you
can
can
head
get
on
new
over to
reviews
Cantina
and
Book Club
episode posts
to find
delivered
in-depth
directly
book
to your
reviews
inbox.
and
If you
read
want to
all
support
from
Cantina
all
Book
types
Club
of
even
genres. While
more,
you're at it, you
you
can
could donate
subscribe
by
by
finding the
entering your
form on
email onto the
cantinabookclub.com,
website so that you
whether
can
it's
get
a
new
one-time
reviews and
donation or
episode
as
posts
little
delivered
as
directly to
$1 a
your
month.
inbox.
I seriously
If you want to
appreciate the
support
support and
Cantina
will
Book
share
Club
my
even more,
appreciation
you could
by
donate
giving
to
you a
the
shout
form
out on
on
the show or maybe sending
cantinabookclub.com,
you something a
where
little
there's a
extra.
one-time donation
And
or
finally,
as
one of the
little as one
best ways that
dollar
you
a
could
month.
help authors
I
promote their
seriously
works is to head
appreciate the
on over to
support and
Amazon,
will share
Goodreads,
my
Storygraph,
appreciation
or
by
wherever
giving
that
you a shout out on
you
the show
look
or
for book
mailing you something a little
recommendations,
extra.
and give the
And
title that
finally, one of the
you've
best
read
ways
and
to
that
help
you've
authors
liked a
promote
rating
their
and
works
review.
is
And
to
it
head
helps
on over
out
to
almost as
Amazon,
much as actually
Goodreads,
purchasing the book
Storygraph,
or
or anywhere that
promoting it
you
on social
personally
media.
look for your book
Thanks so much for
recommendations.
listening and
Give
see
a
you next
title that you
time.
love
Cheers.
a rating and review. It's seriously one of the most helpful things and easiest things that you could do besides pre-ordering, giving love on social media, all that good stuff. Thanks so much for listening and see you next time. Cheers.